The Chengdu J-10 Vigorous Dragon and its variants, known to NATO as the Firebird, are a family of 4th generation Chinese fighters. Both in real life and in War Thunder, these aircraft are certainly unique and offer a fascinating insight into the history of Chinese aviation. Join me in this video as we take a dive into this family of interesting planes, going over their history, their state in War Thunder, and how to play them. The story of the J-10 itself began in early 1986 when Chengdu's No. 611 Research Institute launched Project 86110, which was to be a 4th generation fighter to succeed the old J-7 and, to a lesser extent, the Q-5. This was originally designated the J-9B and was a continuation of the cancelled Chengdu J-9 fighter, which had been abandoned in 1980. Actual development work began in late 1988, and the design took inspiration from several cancelled Chinese designs such as the J-9 and J-13, which was another design abandoned in the 1980s, and the aircraft was to be dubbed the J-10. Despite persistent rumours on the internet, there exists no hard evidence that the J-10 was developed from the IAI Lavi, a cancelled Israeli design. The J-10 was made to be on par with Western and Russian 4th gen fighters of the time, and featured fly-by-wire and a glass cockpit with a wide-angle HUD and 4 MFDs. Initially, Chengdu had hoped to use a Western engine and avionics, until political events in 1989 led to an embargo that made that impossible. Instead, Russia's Saturn AL-31FN afterburning turbofan, an adaptation of the AL-31F used to power the Su-27 family, was selected, which gave the J-10 a good thrust-to-weight ratio of just below 1. Russia also offered the Zuk-10 and RP-35 X-band radars, and the latter of the two was initially selected, despite Chengdu contemplating the indigenous JL-10, also called the Type 1473, which was developed by Liang and would ultimately be selected later. While initially meant to be a pure fighter, the J-10 was transformed into a multi-role combat aircraft, and so it was given 11 hardpoints, 3 under each wing, 1 on the center line, and 2 pairs in front and behind it. The forward pair could carry mission equipment pods, such as the KJDC-01A targeting pod and the KL-700A ECM pod, while the centerline and inner wing pylons were plumbed to carry drop tanks. The weapons available included the PL-8, PL-11, and PL-12 air-to-air missiles, the C-701 anti-radiation missile, and bombs, both dumb and laser-guided. Russian missiles, such as the R-73, R-77, and KH-31, might have been carried if the Zuk-10 radar was selected. The first prototype J-10 took flight on the 23rd of March 1998, and a dozen prototypes took part in the trials, which were completed in 2000. The first pre-production plane flew in 2002, and delivery started in early 2003, with it reaching operational capability with the PLAAF in April 2004, when full-scale production began at Chengdu. Despite this, it was still classified for over 2 more years, finally being officially unveiled in December 2006, wherein it received the popular name Meng Long, meaning Vigorous Dragon, while NATO saw fit to call it the Firebird. Aside from the twin-seat J-10S, the first variant of the J-10 was the J-10A, which was actually the variant that entered service. This first flew in June 2002 and differed from the basic J-10 in having improved avionics and, most notably, a probe for in-flight refueling as standard. Some J-10s were fitted with adapters on their center wing pylons that can carry 2 missiles side by side, bringing the total hardpoint count up to 13. In War Thunder, the J-10A is found at rank 8 and was added in the September 2024 Dance of Dragons update, where it was arguably the best fighter in the game until the addition of later aircraft. I'll go over the airframe itself first, before talking about its avionics and weaponry. As a lightweight Delta Canard with a good thrust-to-weight ratio, the J-10A is still one of the best airframes in the game. It's powered by a Saturn AL-31FN engine, that outputs 7,330 kgf dry and 12,020 wet, which can push it to a rip speed of 1,543 km an hour, or Mach 2.1. The fuel tanks on the J-10A will keep your engine running at 100% for 27.5 minutes internally, with up to 59 minutes if you bring all 3 external tanks, although the afterburning will chew through that in about a third of the time. The landing gear will rip above 620 km an hour, while the J-10 lacks any sort of flaps, although it does have a good air brake to slow down. When it comes to maneuverability, the J-10A's airframe can handle -4.6 to 11.8 Gs, and features a maneuver mode button that disables the AOA limiter, allowing you to pull some crazy angles at low speeds at the cost of stability, although the J-10A is brilliant at this, as it has incredible stall performance due to its lightweight and canards. When talking about turn rates, it can instantaneously pull 34 degrees per second at 750 km an hour, and can sustain 23 at 825. Moving on to avionics, the J-10A's radar is the Type 1473, a modern pulse Doppler I-band system with an 85 km range. This has 4 data link targets, basic NCTR, and a very good gimbal range of 85 degrees to either side, and also pairs with the J-10A's helmet-mounted sight. Defensively, it has 72 large caliber countermeasures, not a notably large amount, but sufficient enough for most fights if used carefully. It also has a KJ8602A RWR, which is a digital system that covers E to J bands with target ID, although it doesn't cover directly up and down. On to weaponry, we'll go over air-to-air first, before covering air-to-ground. The J-10A features a Type 23-3 cannon, a copy of the Soviet Gush-23 with 200 rounds. This isn't a phenomenal gun, but it does have a high rate of fire, at the cost of ammo count, damage, and muzzle velocity. Moving on to air-to-air missiles, you have 2 kinds of IR homing Fox 2s, which are your PL-5E2s and your PL-8Bs. Both are all-aspect variants of earlier Chinese missiles with gate-width IRCCM, and you can carry up to 6 of both, although most loadouts will only see you take 2. The PL-5E2 is built on the PL-5 body and has a very fast acceleration, allowing it to reach targets quite well, while at closer ranges acting almost like a Minecraft arrow that shoots straight but accelerates very quickly, while the PL-8B is built on the PL-8 body, a copy of the Python 3, and thus has slower acceleration but turns better off the rail. Your active radar homing Fox 3s are the PL-12, a domestic Chinese missile in the same class as the AIM-120B AMRAAM, with slightly less long-range performance but better pulling at close ranges, not to the level of the R-77 or Mica, but still quite good. You can carry up to 6 of these, 4 of which are on double mount pylons. Moving on to air-to-ground weapons, we'll start by talking about the targeting pod. The J-10A can carry the KADC-03A targeting pod, which has a laser, good thermals, target tracking, and a zoom of either 4 times or 49 times. This is in support of a number of its weapons, both guided and unguided. The unguided weapons are both bombs, 250 kilos and 500 kilos, in either freefall or parachute-slowed variants, and rockets, either small Type 90-1 heat rockets or larger Type 130-2 HE rockets. Moving on to guided ordnance, first up are the GB250 and GB500 laser-guided bombs. These need the targeting pod to laser them in, and differ in that the 250 has dual-mode IOG and GPS guidance, allowing it to continue on target if the lock is lost, although the 500 lacks this. As these don't have any sort of range extension, they're not very good for standoff attacks against SPAA. Next up are the LS6 250s and 500s. These are GPS-guided glide bombs that have a very long range and will accurately hit a marked target point, although cannot track anything moving. For tracking moving targets, you'll want to use the LS6 IR 250s. You can carry up to 4 of these dual-mode IR and GPS-guided glide bombs, which target lock an enemy IR signature and will glide in from a long range, provided they get a good lock. They don't need the plane to continuously guide them in, so they're great for standoff attacks, although you do need line of sight to lock them in the first place. These can be launched through the targeting pod, but as it has wider angles than the bomb seeker itself, you'll have to take care that it's actually locked. In Air RB, the J-10A sits at 13.7, where it's still quite a capable fighter around its own BR, although it can be often outmatched by aircraft in full up tiers, which aren't uncommon. When taking out the J-10A in Air RB, I'd recommend bringing a full load of fuel with a single drop tank under the centerline pylon. For loadout, I'd recommend 6 PL-12s and 2 PL-5E2s, although you can vary this with 3 or 4 PL-5E2s if you really like them, or if the PL-12s aren't giving you much luck. The J-10A plays best at a medium altitude, where you'll want to play for position and take advantage of your radar's very good 85-degree limit. In general, your airframe can lend you a pretty aggressive playstyle against most opponents. If you find yourself in an actual dogfight, make sure to use your AOA limiter toggle. You have very good control in maneuver mode, and your stall control is incredible. Make sure to keep an eye on your fuel, as you'll want to keep enough to get home. I wouldn't ever go for base bombing on the J-10A, as carrying enough bombs to take out a base requires you to ditch 2 of your PL-12s and will quite hamper your flight performance, as well as requiring a tier 3 mod, making it not very well suited for grinding. If you do anyway, make sure to take the parachute slowed bombs, as they have more explosive mass than their freefall counterparts. In Ground RB, the J-10A sits at 12.3, where it fits into a fairly good lineup, albeit one that almost always faces full up tiers. Its decent CAS capability is often overshadowed by its rather small carrying capacity, only being able to carry 4 effective air-to-ground weapons, fewer still if you want to retain a multi-role capability. As you'll often be facing top-tier SAMs, your best bet is to carry 4 LS-6 IRs and fire them from a standoff range before dropping down to use terrain to evade any SAMs fired at you, although, due to only having 4, don't be surprised if they get intercepted. By the mid-2000s, it became clear to the PLAAF that the J-10A, while capable, was unable to compete with the latest generation of US Air Force and US Navy fighters on equal terms, and so Chengdu was given the task of developing an upgraded version, designated the J-10B. This was powered by an upgraded AL-31FN M1 engine, which drew in air through a new divertless supersonic intake under the nose. This made the design simpler, lighter, and even lowered its radar cross-section by eliminating the previous gap. On internal systems, the J-10B featured a new PACER radar, an upgrade, but not quite the planned AESA radar that the No. 607 Institute had been tasked with developing. This was fitted into a slightly redesigned nose cone, and the PACER radar gave the J-10B a stronger multi-target capability, and was paired with a new IRST system in a ball in front of the cockpit. It also had a slightly taller tail, and slightly enlarged ventral fins, and finally the addition of a Morse. The first J-10B prototype took flight in December 2008, and it was publicly unveiled in March 2009. Interestingly, an indigenous WS-10B capable of thrust vectoring was tested on a J-10B at one point. The latest domestic variant of the vigorous Dragon, the J-10C, is an improvement on the J-10B, keeping the new intake and nose but featuring a number of predominantly internal changes. Most importantly, the radar was replaced by a KLJ-10A AESA radar, often confused with the JF-17's KLJ-7A. This gave it a huge advantage over its predecessors and brought it to a level competitive with modern American systems, and it complements the new armament, which now included cutting-edge PL-10 and PL-15 air-to-air missiles, as well as YJ-91 anti-radiation missiles, KD-88 and 88A air-to-surface missiles, YJ-83K anti-ship missiles, and laser-guided bombs, as well as ECM and targeting pods. The first J-10C prototype took flight on the last day of 2013, still powered by an AL-31FN M3, and it entered service in 2016. By 2019, newer models were being equipped with the WS-10B without thrust vectoring, and in 2020, pilots of the J-10C received a new helmet-mounted display to better use the high off-bore sight capability of the PL-10. The J-10C has also seen some success in the export market as the J-10CE, with several countries interested in buying it, and Pakistan operating a fleet of 36. While none of the PLAAF's J-10s have seen combat service, the PAFs have. As a disclaimer, clear and concrete information about this is hard to come by, so even a year later, some details are missing, and a lot of misinformation surrounds the following events. During the 2025 India-Pakistan conflict, at 1 AM on the 7th of May, India launched Operation Sindoor. This consisted of a large number of air and missile attacks on targets in Pakistan, with the IAF's Rafales being loaded up with Scalp cruise missiles and Azam Hammer guided bombs, seemingly at the cost of bringing a meaningful air-to-air loadout. Pakistan, contrary to Indian planning, scrambled a large number of aircraft to challenge and intercept the strike, and triggered one of the largest aerial battles since the end of the Second World War, where over 70 Indian and 40 Pakistani aircraft had long-range BVR engagement. The IAF fielded a broad range of aircraft, including Rafales, Su-30 MKIs, and possibly MiG-29s and Mirage 2000s, while the PAF fielded a sizable portion of their J-10 fleet, as well as JF-17s and supporting AWACS. Losses claimed by both sides differ, but independent observers assess that India lost 2 to 4 aircraft, most notoriously at least one Rafale, whose tail number BS001 was found, making it the first Rafale lost in combat, and that specific Rafale having been the first one delivered to India. Pakistan, on the other hand, is not believed to have lost any aircraft despite some Indian claims. Interestingly, both sides stayed on their respective sides of the border, making this a fascinating example of BVR combat. The Rafale, along with the other aircraft lost, were almost certainly shot down by a PL-15E, launched from a J-10CE of number 15 Cobra Squadron, and guided in via data link from an AWACS. In War Thunder, the J-10C can be found at rank 9 and was added in the December 2025 Line of Contact update. While initially added with a slight modification of the same AL31FN from the J-10A to much disappointment, the J-10C was later updated to receive the new Shenyang Liming WS-10B, which provides 8,620 kgf of thrust dry, or 13,580 wet, a roughly 13% increase over the J-10A. While the airframe is indeed around 9% heavier, the extra thrust does give it a slightly improved TWR, although it's not all that noticeable. Instead, the J-10C's main improvements come in the form of its better radar and suspended ordnance. The radar in question is the KLJ-10A, an ASA system with an increased range, 8 data link channels, detailed NCTR, and even surface search GMTI modes. It also features an IRST system, but comes at the cost of a narrower gimbal limit of only 70 degrees either side, although it does allow 90 degrees upwards, which can be used to make some weirder shots, which the PL-12As, which we'll cover shortly, may be capable of. The J-10C also features a MORS, which will alert the pilot to incoming missiles and can automatically deploy countermeasures, although as you still only get 72, it might not be ideal to leave that setting on. On to new air-to-air ordnance, and the J-10C features the ability to mount 2 more ARH missiles on the belly pylon, bringing your total missile count up to 10. These can either be the PL-12s mentioned on the J-10A, or the new PL-12As, which are a minor upgrade to the PL-12s, increasing their battery life from 80 seconds to 120, and, more importantly, adding GPS guidance to their IOG, allowing them to be better at hitting targets out of their arc, even behind the plane itself in very specific circumstances. For IR missiles, the J-10C loses the J-10A's PL-5E2s, meaning that, for better or for worse, you'll have to carry the PL-8Bs. For the new ground ordnance, the J-10C gets the Yings 3 targeting pod, an improvement from the earlier one found on the J-10A with zoom settings of 3x to 147x. As this can laze targets, it'll be needed to use the GB250s, which you can now carry up to 7 of, or your 4 unimproved GB500s, or 2 new GB1000s, which are 1-ton variants with the same advanced guidance as the GB250s. The final new laser-guided bomb is the GB3, which weighs the same as the GB250, but has more explosive mass and a longer guidance time, and you can carry up to 14 of them. In addition to all the pre-existing rockets, unguided bombs, and glide bombs found on the J-10A, the J-10C can now carry many more LS-6 IR-250s, up to 10, which represents a big leap in capability for it. Air RB, the J-10C sits at 14.3, where it plays remarkably similar to the J-10A, just without the down tiers. As for your differences, your radar is much better at picking up targets, and especially at focusing one down. The downside with it is that your reduced gimbal limit can restrict your ability to crank, which is further compounded with the difference in airframe, as, when compared to the J-10A, the J-10C has a slightly worse flight model, mostly due to the different thrust curves on the engine. As such, you'll want to play the J-10C somewhat less aggressively than the J-10A, although you'll be able to better focus people as PL-12As are more reliable, especially when paired with your better radar. The final thing to bear in mind is fuel. As your best loadout is 8 PL-12As and 2 PL-8Bs, you're not going to be able to bring any fuel tanks. Much like with the J-10A, bombing in the J-10C is ill-advised as it significantly weighs you down, costing you precious fuel and costs you 2 of your missiles for a single base. In ground RB, the J-10C sits at 12.7, where it fits into a decent top tier lineup, although the inclusion of the Z-10ME in that lineup can push it to 13.0. Unlike the J-10A, the J-10C is a fairly capable CAS platform. While not having heavy-hitting KH-38 MTs like some choices in other nations, you can make a fairly good multi-role loadout out of 10 LS6 IR-250s, 2 PL-12As on the center line, and 2 PL-8Bs on your wingtips. The advice on how to play the J-10C is effectively the same as the J-10A, you've just got significantly more bombs. While the GB3s might sound good, unless the enemy has no SPAA, they're just riskier than your IR glide bombs for little added benefit. Once you've got your J-10s researched, you'll want to get them spaded. For the J-10A, start with flares and chaff and PL5E2s, before grabbing new boosters and airframe. At rank 3, grab G-suit, cover, and PL8Bs to get you to the PL12s. With those, go and grab engine before working your way back through compressor, wings repair, and fuselage repair. Next, grab the LS6IR-250s, the K80C-03A, the offensive 23mm, and the new 23mm cannons. With those out of the way, you're free to grab the rest of the ground ordnance, and finally, EFS. For the J-10C, start with flares and chaff and the PL-8B, before grabbing new boosters and airframe. Next, grab the PL-12s, G-suit, and cover to get you to the PL-12As, before grabbing engine, compressor, wings repair, and fuselage repair. With your flight performance done, grab the LS6 IR-250s and the Yings 3, before getting your offensive 23mm and the new 23mm cannons. Finish up by getting the rest of the ground ordnance, and finally EFS. With both of those out of the way, that's all of the J-10 family spaded. And that's it for the J-10 family as it currently stands in War Thunder. While in the future we may see other J-10s, such as the J-10B or the J-10CE, or even the J-10B or thrust vectoring, we've reached the limits of what Gaijin has given us, for now. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, then liking and subscribing would mean a lot to me. If you want to join my community, there's a link in the description to my Discord. The next video in this series will be about the newly released J-15T, and won't have as long of a wait, so stay tuned. And that's all from me. I've been girltwink, fly safe.